At one stage, it looked like Mateta of Crystal Palace was going to be heading to Turin, to Juventus. But now, Nottingham Forest have made a £35 million offer to sign Mateta from Crystal Palace. Personal terms between Forest and the 28-year-old are understood not to be an issue. Now, Oliver Glasner has spoken about his striker, and he is his striker, Jean-Philippe Mateta. He's spoken Friday about him. This was him on that very topic.
Very clear, so he didn't hand in a transfer request, and we have no bid received right now.
Okay. Has he spoken to you about wanting to move away from Crystal Palace?
I speak with many players and about different topics, but I think it's what they deserve is that I don't tell it publicly. I think every player, there is a price where a club say, okay, how you say, evaluating the whole situation, yeah, age, contract, duration, and a price where a club would say, okay, we agree to a deal, but again, there's no bid came in, and he didn't hand in a transfer request.
So what's going on here, Simon? He was booed at the weekend. Palace in 15th, Nottingham Forest in 17th. £35 million offer on the table from Forest at Palace. Should they really sell to anyone, including Forest, if it comes about?
I think Palace, if they're going to get sucked into a relegation battle, should be more worried about selling to West Ham or Burnley than necessarily Forest. But I understand the optics of it don't look good. The player wanting to go to Nottingham Forest, what does that tell you? It tells you that perhaps Nottingham Forest's ambition, Nottingham Forest's ambition is clearly greater than Crystal Palace's because they've stated it. I mean, you haven't heard a statement from Crystal Palace saying they're going to dominate English football and win all the trophies and do whatever Marinakis said last time he was singing the song about what Forest are going to do. They don't spend the money that Forest do. They don't. Matter of fact, they've got the ability to do it. They don't.
There's a bit of needle between the two of them. I mean, the two clubs
there's a lot.
This recent history.
It was not.
This Forest took Palace's place in the Europa League.
But that's confected needle. It's not Nottingham Forest's fault that Crystal Palace dropped a B. And ultimately made a mistake and created the problems for themselves. Nottingham Forest, they were rabble-rousers. They put their 2 penneth in, but Palace would have done the same thing. If Palace saw an opportunity, I suspect, all this camaraderie and kinship would have gone straight out the window because everyone's competing against one another. So Palace would have jumped on Nottingham Forest's grave in the same way the Forest jumped on Palace's grave.
When you were at the top, did you ever care who you sold to? Did your boundaries? No, I can't sell to him.
Not really. Everyone's
history.
You can't make the scene if you haven't got the green, right? Everyone's money is the same colour. So, within due respect, I wouldn't have. If I was trying to get promoted and someone was sitting next door to me, I was first and they were second, or I was third and they were fourth, and I was going to sell a player to them, I don't think I would have done that. I mean, remember that being done by Ipswich years ago, or more to the point, Huddersfield years ago with Marcus Stewart. Of course, Steve Brewster had an absolute rabid reaction to his owner at Huddersfield when they were sitting in the top 6. So the optics of it aren't very good. But you don't run your businesses, to some extent, by optics.
Well, let me put it this way. If Mateta to Forest is sanctioned, and it could well be, and Alex Crook will join us later on this morning.
What do you do next?
Whose ambition do you call into question more, though? Mateta's or Palace's?
I don't care about Mateta's ambition. He's irrelevant. He wants to leave. So his ambition is not my responsibility. His ambition is not my concern. My concern as a Crystal Palace fan, and in the instance of Parish and his board as Crystal Palace owners, is what do I do with this player who wants to leave? I don't know the conversations that have been had between Mateta. He's cited the fact that they've told him things that they're not doing. I mean, I'm quite why they'd need to tell Mateta what they're doing with the transfer policies. I know they would have signed a new contract and perhaps told him that we have ambition. Well, players then deliberately misinterpret that and use it as an opportunity to weaponise the conversation when they want to do something that they shouldn't be doing, which is actually saying, I've had a turn, I want to leave. Now, he's entitled to leave if he wants to. How he leaves is under Crystal Palace's jurisdiction to some extent. And if they feel that a player that doesn't want to be there can be cashed in on, got a decent price, and they've got a ready-made lineup in that donkey at Wolves, then up to them. Up to them.
You don't stop on him. We'll get to him.
No, because I think he's useless. I think this idea that we lionise these players and pay 40, 50 million people for can't even trap a bleeding ball, it evades me. But listen, beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
He's not asking, Strand Larson, right? He's not asking for people to bid 40, 50 million.
No, I know, he's not worth it either.
But does this not show how...
He should be out for Trade Descriptions Act.
Does this not show how quickly things have unravelled at Selhurst Park?
It's a difficult moment.
That Mateta might consider Nottingham Forest a step up on Crystal Palace.
Well, in ambition terms, in the size and scale of the football clubs, in the achievements of the football clubs, despite the fact Nottingham Forest are languishing outside of the Premier League for 23 years, let's have it right, they are. Their owner's more ambitious. Of course he's more ambitious. He wants to spend as much money as he possibly can. He hasn't made any bones about what he thinks the opportunity should exist for Nottingham Forest. He's backed it with cash. And the one thing you can't say about Marinakis, besides he's got unpalatable habits at times, is that he isn't ambitious and he doesn't mean what he says. Now cross-reference that with Palace. Cross-reference that with a board that Parish hasn't got 2 and 6 to rub together, but the other guys have. The other guys, Blitzer and Harris, have got plenty of money. And there's plenty of room inside.
Why are they not doing something
Well,
then?
they might
How can you win the FA Cup and thereafter sell Eze, Gehi, and now Mateta?
No, but hold on.
That's
You
true.
didn't sell Eze and Gehi. You got them taken off you by bigger football clubs, and there's nothing you can do about it. Eze would have driven himself around the corner to Arsenal. He wanted to go to Arsenal. He was going to Arsenal one way or by hook or by crook. Gehi made his position clear. Palace, as a matter of absolute copper bottom fact, turned down 60 million quid for Gehi from Newcastle in August 2024. So the player then from that point on was never going to sign a new contract. There's nothing you can do about that because you understand where you are as a club. What's your priority? Going after the extra 2 or 3 places up the league, costing yourself 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 million quid to achieve it and maybe get another 10 million quid back. I'm not saying you don't know. I'm not saying know your place. I'm saying the reality of it is that there's a risk-reward ratio. Football doesn't base itself upon that. It only bases itself upon the emotion of it. But if there's a consequence and you get the risk-reward wrong, like Everton, where are you then? You're in jeopardy. You're circling around the drain, as I described earlier on, of Everton, looking down at the Championship. And is everyone patting you on the back for having some balls then? Did anyone pat Mashiri on the back for spending 500 million quid on players that was badly spent? Anyone pat him on the back for that? No, they couldn't get him out the bleeding door fast enough and thought he was an imbecile. So there's got to be some balance between what's being done at Crystal Palace against what it looks like right now. The same board put Glasner in place. The same board supported Glasner that gave him a team that was capable of competing in the Premier League and winning the FA Cup. He didn't do it in isolation. He did it in conjunction. And of course he did it brilliantly. And of course he should get all the plaudits because the first team manager always will do. But then they don't operate in a vacuum. They operate in a space where they're provided with the tools. And what they do with those tools is successful or unsuccessful. Now he's going and they have to answer to that. But he was always going to go. He was always going to go.
Yeah, but not to Nottingham Forest.
No, not the player, the manager. Yeah, but the player, that's up to the bleeding player. If no one wants to pay 35 or 40 million quid
He's got a contract till 2027.
Then keep him.
If you were still at Crystal Palace this morning and there's a £35 million bid in the table from
Depends
Forest,
what I'm lining up as replacement.
would you sell him?
Depends what I'm lining up as replacement. If I've got my business done in my mind's eye, and I know what I'm buying and it's a done deal somewhere else, and this little twerp that doesn't want to play for me anymore can go somewhere else and I can cash in on him and I can provide myself with a replacement. I mean, I'm not a fan of Mateta's. I think he's a streaky player that did okay. I think he hit a wicked vein of form last year and looked really good. But prior to that, with due respect to Delhi, he looked like a rich man's Delhi Adebola. He didn't look like a physical athlete. He's got himself in the French team. I'm not surprised that Wilfried Zaha was laughing at him 18 months ago when he couldn't even get in Palace's first team and having dreams of playing in the French team. So with all that in mind, if Mateta wants to leave and I've got myself lined up,
right.
If Palace haven't got themselves lined up, like the centre-back situation...
They've explored a move for Jorgen Strand Larsen at
Yeah, I mean, now, listen, my views on that are clear, but I'm not a scout. And my views, I went and watched Gerard Bowen play for Hull 4 or 5 years ago, and I thought he was not particularly good. So that shuts me right up, doesn't it? At the end of the day, I've watched Strand Larsen. I think he's a donkey. If Palace think he's something different, and they've got the replacement, some would say 18 months ago that Mateta is one. You know, and he's hit a vein of form under Oliver Glasner. Everybody in the end gets what they deserve. You can look at the karma that goes around football and work out where it lands. The fact is, he wants to leave. He's entitled to leave. Palace can bank a load of cash on him, buy a new player that wants to come to Crystal Palace and move on. The manager's going to go. They'll replace him with another manager that will hopefully keep Palace afloat in the Premier League, and order will be returned.
So it doesn't matter if it strengthens their near rivals in the near future. And that's what it might do if they sell him to Forest. And they are near rivals right now.
Yeah, it's not ideal.
Of that there is no doubt.
But the same.
It's not ideal. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Palace are 15th, Forest are 17th.
Sure, but I've just
have Mateta.
But I've just made my points.
He bangs them in.
I've just made my points that ultimately I think Palace's main concern, if they're going to get drawn into a relegation battle, is with West Ham, Burnley,
And at the moment.
And at the moment. Sure. But by the same token, if the only bid in town, I don't suppose Palace are running around knocking on Nottingham Forest's door. I don't suppose they phoned up their rivals and said, by the way, would you like us to sell as your player? They made a bid. And what Palace probably would ideally like to do is use that as a stalking horse to be able to jack some other fool up that wants to pay more money for him.
You don't like talking about the Palace ownership, and I understand for
no,
various
I'm fine
reasons
talking
why
about it.
you
I just don't like to be impartial, to be not objective about it.
Yeah, I mean, since they won the FA Cup, they've dropped the ball, haven't they?
What they've shown is what their priorities
it's been
are.
One disaster after another.
Well, okay, well, let's walk through it then.
Europa League, now it's Europa League.
I mean, I've said my point on that. But you have to praise and criticise in equal measure. Crystal Palace have been in the Premier League now for 12 years, 13 years. They've never done it in their 120-year history. Right? They've won an FA Cup. All of that's been brought about by an ownership model that had the same wherewithal to bring Glasner through the door and to sign Eberechi Eze. Now, yes, of course, there's a constant theme about Parish falling out with people, whether they fall out with Dougie Freedman, whether they fell out with John Textor, whether the fact that he is what I think he is. I've got no admiration for him as a bloke, but you have to also be objective about the fact that he has presided over a level of success. So Palace fans need to dial it back a bit. And now going on to the scenario of what they could do last year, yeah, of course they could do it, but Parish hasn't got the money. So it has to be Blitzer and Harris. Where are those guys with their dough?
Well, wait, that's a big question, isn't it?
You tell me. Maybe they're too busy propping up Bromby or whatever other football clubs they've got. Maybe they should be asked the question about their ambition because they can do it on PSR, or maybe the answer will be all our eggs are going in the new stadium configuration, and we need 300 million quid for that.
Well, I'm looking at some of the messages coming in, Simon. We might dwell upon a few of them. If you want to give us a call on this, give us a call. Quite a number of Palace fans are saying, Mateta, yeah, good luck and goodbye. And quite a number of Forest fans are saying, not for us, thanks. So I wonder how this is going to finish. 03717 223344. 35 million at the moment. Forest fans, would you welcome Mateta through the door? Doesn't look that way. Palace fans, would you kiss him goodbye as he leaves? 03717 223344. Or should there be a red line here? If the terms are right, should you sell to anyone, or do you put your foot down at some stage and say, no, not to them? They're too near neighbours in terms of what might end up as a relegation battle. In any case, for the latest special offers, pick up this month's Real Deals in-branch review online at selcobw.com.
The Real Deal on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse.